New York Jets fans hate Tom Brady. For 2 decades, Tom Brady was the boogeyman for the New York Jets and their long-suffering fan base. It wasn't just that Brady's New England Patriots dominated the AFC East. It was the relentless, soul-crushing way they did it. Brady's record against the Jets was a staggering 29-7, a statistic that tells the story of 2 decades of dominance and humiliation. He didn't just beat them, he owned them completely and utterly. The hatred Jets fans feel for Brady is born from years of helplessness and humiliation, watching their team consistently fall short against a quarterback who seemed to have their number every single time they met. Every Jets season seemed to begin and end with the question of how to beat Tom Brady, and the answer was almost always the same: you can't. The hatred is also fueled by the Patriots' various cheating scandals, which Jets fans believe tainted Brady's success and gave him an unfair advantage. Spygate and Deflategate are seen not as minor infractions, but as proof that Brady's dominance was illegitimate and that he needed to cheat to beat their team. For Jets fans, Brady represents a perfect storm of athletic greatness, perceived arrogance, and institutional cheating, making him the undisputed most hated player in their team's history. The fact that he won 7 Super Bowls, while the Jets have not been to one since 1969, only pours salt in the wound and serves as a constant reminder of their franchise's failures. He is the living embodiment of everything they are not: successful, clutch, and consistently excellent. The hatred reached its peak during the 2010 season when Brady was caught on camera saying "can't wait" when told the Jets were coming to Foxborough, a comment that was seen as the ultimate disrespect by Jets fans. Brady's dominance over the Jets was so complete that it became a running joke in the NFL, with analysts and fans alike marveling at his ability to consistently outplay and outcoach a division rival. Philadelphia Eagles fans hate Jason Witten, for 15 seasons Dallas Cowboys tight end. Jason Witten was a constant thorn in the side of the Philadelphia Eagles, becoming the player that Eagles fans loved to hate more than any other. He was the ultimate Eagles killer, a player who always seemed to make the big catch at the most crucial moment, particularly on 3rd downs when the Eagles desperately needed a stop. Witten's consistency and durability were maddening for Eagles fans, as he rarely missed a game and was a reliable target for Cowboys quarterbacks for over a decade and a half. The hatred for Witten is not born from dirty play or off-the-field antics, but from pure, unadulterated on-field dominance and his uncanny ability to hurt the Eagles when it mattered most. He was the player Eagles fans knew they had to stop, but rarely could, no matter what defensive scheme they employed. His signature move was the simple out route, a play that seemed so basic and predictable, yet was so devastatingly effective against Eagles defenses. Witten's ability to find the soft spot in the Eagles' zone defense and make the tough catch in traffic was legendary, and he seemed to have a sixth sense for finding openings in their secondary. The hatred is also fueled by the intense rivalry between the Eagles and the Cowboys, 2 teams that have a genuine dislike for each other that goes back decades. Witten was the face of the Cowboys for many years, and for Eagles fans, he represented everything they despised about their rivals: the arrogance, the success, and the seemingly endless supply of clutch plays. He was the player they loved to hate, a testament to his greatness and his impact on one of the NFL's most heated rivalries. The fact that Witten was so fundamentally sound and professional made him even more infuriating for Eagles fans, as they couldn't even hate him for being a bad person or a dirty player. He was just annoyingly good at football, particularly against their team. Baltimore Ravens fans hate James Harrison. The rivalry between the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers is one of the most physical and violent in the NFL, and no player embodied that violence and intensity more than Steelers linebacker James Harrison. For Ravens fans, Harrison was the ultimate villain, a player who seemed to take genuine pleasure in inflicting pain on their team, and who played with a level of aggression that bordered on the psychotic. His bone-crushing hits and aggressive style of play made him a constant threat on the field, and his off-the-field comments and social media posts only fueled the hatred. Harrison was known for his outspoken and often controversial opinions, and he never shied away from a war of words with the Ravens or their fans. The hatred for Harrison is born from a combination of his on-field dominance and his off-field persona, which Ravens fans saw as arrogant and disrespectful. He was a player who played on the edge and sometimes over it, and his borderline dirty play made him a target for Ravens fans' vitriol. The most infamous moment in the rivalry came game in 2008 when Harrison delivered a helmet-to-helmet hit on Ravens running back Willis McGahee that left him motionless on the field and required him to be taken off on a stretcher. The hit was so violent and devastating that it was replayed endlessly on sports shows, and it became a symbol of the brutality of the Steelers-Ravens rivalry. For Ravens fans, the hit was seen as a deliberate attempt to injure their player, and it cemented Harrison's reputation as a dirty player who had no regard for the safety of his opponents. Harrison's Instagram posts, where he would often celebrate big hits and make controversial statements, only added fuel to the fire and made him even more hated by Ravens fans. For Ravens fans, Harrison was more than just a great player. He was a symbol of everything they hated about the Steelers: the arrogance, the physicality, and the willingness to do whatever it takes to win, even if it meant hurting other players. Green Bay Packers. Fans hate Jay Cutler. For years, the Green Bay Packers have dominated the Chicago Bears, and no player represents that dominance and the Bears' futility more than former Bears quarterback Jay Cutler. For Packers fans, Cutler was the gift that kept on giving, a player who was talented enough to give the Bears hope, but ultimately flawed enough to ensure their continued failure. Cutler's tenure in Chicago was marked by inconsistency, ill-timed turnovers, and a seemingly indifferent attitude that drove Bears fans crazy and delighted Packers fans to no end. The hatred for Cutler is not born from fear, but from amusement and a sense of superiority. He was the player Packers fans loved to mock, the player who always seemed to find a way to lose in the most spectacular and heartbreaking fashion for Bears fans. His signature move was the ill-advised interception, often thrown directly to Packers defenders in crucial situations, a throw that would leave Bears fans groaning in agony and Packers fans cheering with glee. The hatred is also fueled by the intense rivalry between the Packers and the Bears, the oldest rivalry in the NFL and one that carries deep historical significance for both franchises. For Packers fans, Cutler was the perfect villain, a player who was just good enough to make the games interesting and give Bears fans hope, but never good enough to actually win when it mattered most. His infamous performance in the 2011 NFC Championship game, where he left the game with a knee injury and was seen pouting on the sideline while his team fought to reach the Super Bowl, cemented his legacy as one of the most hated players in Packers history. The image of Cutler on the sideline, looking disinterested while his teammates battled, became a symbol of everything Packers fans believed was wrong with the Bears: a lack of toughness, leadership, and heart. He was the symbol of the Bears' futility, a player who represented everything that was wrong with their rivals and everything that was right with their own team's culture and mentality. Indianapolis Colts fans hate Tom Brady. Before he was tormenting the Jets, Tom Brady was the arch nemesis of the Indianapolis Colts and their legendary quarterback Peyton Manning. The Brady-Manning rivalry was one of the greatest in NFL history, a battle between two of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game, but for Colts fans, it was a source of endless frustration and heartbreak. For Colts fans, Brady was the ultimate villain, the player who always seemed to find a way to beat their team in the biggest moments, often in the most crushing and demoralizing fashion. The hatred for Brady is born from a combination of his on-field success against the Colts and the controversies that surrounded his career, which Colts fans believe gave him an unfair advantage. The Spygate and Deflategate scandals are seen by Colts fans as proof that Brady's success was not entirely legitimate, and the fact that he beat their team in so many crucial games only adds to the bitterness and resentment. The rivalry was particularly intense in the playoffs, where Brady and the Patriots beat the Colts in several high-stakes matchups that left Colts fans wondering what might have been. The 2004 AFC Championship game, where the Patriots intercepted Manning 4 times and dominated the Colts 20-3, was a particularly painful loss that showcased Brady's ability to rise to the occasion in big games. For years, the road to the Super Bowl in the AFC went through either New England or Indianapolis, and the battles between Brady and Manning were some of the most memorable and dramatic in NFL history. For Colts fans, Brady was the player who stood in the way of their team's greatness, the player who prevented them from winning more Super Bowls and achieving the dynasty that many believed they were capable of. He was the ultimate rival, a player whose success was both admired and despised, and whose dominance over their team became a source of endless frustration and what-if scenarios. San Francisco 49ers fans hate Russell Wilson. For a decade, Russell Wilson Wilson was the face of the Seattle Seahawks, the 49ers' most hated rival, and the player who symbolized everything that was wrong with the NFC West from a San Francisco perspective. Wilson's tenure in Seattle was marked by incredible success, including a Super Bowl victory, multiple playoff appearances, and a string of dramatic victories that often came at the expense of the 49ers. For 49ers fans, Wilson was the ultimate villain, a player who was not only great, but also seemed to have a supernatural knack for making incredible plays at the most crucial moments, often turning certain defeat into miraculous victory. The hatred for Wilson is born from a combination of his on-field dominance and his seemingly perfect off-field persona, which 49ers fans found insufferably fake and annoying. He was a player who was always smiling, always saying the right thing, and always finding a way to win even when his team had no business winning. For 49ers fans, his squeaky clean image and constant references to his faith were just as annoying as his on-field success, and they saw him as a phony who was putting on an act for the cameras. The rivalry between the 49ers and the Seahawks was one of the most intense in the NFL during the 2010s, and Wilson was at the center of it all, serving as the lightning rod for all of the hatred and frustration that 49ers fans felt toward their division rivals. His ability to extend plays with his legs and make throws on the run was legendary, and he seemed to have a sixth sense for avoiding pressure and finding open receivers, particularly in crucial situations. The 2014 NFC Championship game, where Wilson led the Seahawks to a dramatic comeback victory over the 49ers, was a particularly painful loss for San Francisco fans, and one that perfectly encapsulated their hatred for the Seattle quarterback. The game ended with Richard Sherman, another hated Seahawks player, making a game-saving interception in the end zone, but it was Wilson's leadership and clutch play throughout the game that made the victory possible. For 49ers fans, Wilson was the player who represented everything they hated about the Seahawks: the arrogance, the success, and the seemingly endless supply of miraculous plays that defied logic and reason. Denver Broncos fans hate Philip Rivers. Philip Rivers, the longtime quarterback for the San Diego Los Angeles Chargers, was one of the most polarizing players in the NFL, and the player that Broncos fans loved to hate more than any other. He was a fiery competitor, an emotional leader, and a trash talker who was not afraid to show his emotions on the field, often in the most animated and over-the-top fashion possible. For Broncos fans, Rivers was the ultimate villain, a player whose on-field antics, constant complaining to referees, and emotional outbursts made him easy to despise and root against. The hatred for Rivers is born from a combination of his personality and his success against the Broncos, as he was a player who seemed to take particular pleasure in beating Denver and was not afraid to let them and their fans know about it. He was known for his animated celebrations, his trash talking, and his ability to get under the skin of opposing players and fans. His signature move was the bolo tie, a fashion statement that became a symbol of his quirky and often annoying personality, and his animated sideline celebrations that Broncos fans found insufferable. The rivalry between the Broncos and the Chargers was one of the most heated in the AFC West, and Rivers was at the center of it all, serving as the face of a franchise that Broncos fans saw as inferior but annoyingly persistent. He was a player who was easy to root against, a player whose emotional outbursts and constant complaining made him a target for Broncos fans' vitriol and mockery. The hatred was also fueled by the fact that Rivers was a genuinely great quarterback who often played his best games against the Broncos, making him a legitimate threat that couldn't be dismissed or ignored. He was a player who was good enough to be dangerous, but also annoying enough to be despised, creating the perfect combination for a hated rival. For Broncos fans, Rivers was the perfect villain, a player whose talent was undeniable, but whose personality was unbearable, and whose success against their team was infuriating.